Hi there, I'm SR Coder and welcome back to part 8 of my MLAPI tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be doing respawns, so when your health gets down to 0, the player disappears and respawned at a new position. Hopefully this is going to be a nice quick one, and let's get started. Alright, so we'll just go into this player and we'll just create a new script. So I'm going to create a new C# script and I'm going to call this player spawner, and then we'll just open this up. So the player spawner is going to have to be a multiplayer script, so it needs to be using MLAPI, and we're going to be using MLAPI.messaging as well, because we're going to be sending some RPCs backwards and forwards, and obviously I'm going to make this a network behavior as well. So we're going to want the getRandomSpawn method from the connection manager. So just to save time, let's just copy paste that straight in. So copy paste that straight in, and what we're going to do is just write some really simple code just to test this. So we're going to create a nice simple respawn method in here. So we'll just make this void. And let's just make this public as well, so that we can call it from the health script when it gets round to it. So for now, I'm just going to say if we are the local player, and we press a key, so input dot get key down, and we'll just maybe choose a random key like Y. Then we'll call this respawn method, and it'll do what we need to do for the respawn. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to make a server RPC, and this is going to just basically get the respawn position. So let's call this, we'll make it a void return type, and this, let's call this respawn server RPC. And this will get called on the server, obviously, and all we're going to do is all this needs to do is it needs to just get a random spawn point, but it's going to need to do this on the server, so that we can so it's synchronized, so it's synced across all of the other clients when the client finally gets it. So it's pretty simple. All we're really going to do is we're going to get that random spawn position, and we're going to run the client RPC. So we're just going to we'll just run it here. We'll call it respawn, and we'll call it client RPC, and we're going to pass to it the random spawn position. So get random spawn. I'm going to pass that straight in, and this is a vector 3 that we'll get back from this event, and this doesn't exist yet, so let's just write that. So we need to make the attribute as well of client RPC, and we called it void respawn client RPC, and it takes in a vector 3, and we'll just call this spawn pos. Terrible spelling today, so we'll call that spawn position. So when we run the respawn, we're just going to simply run the server. So we're just going to run this server RPC for now. So run the server RPC. That doesn't take any parameters. That server RPC is going to be run on the server, and it's going to get this random spawn point on the server, and pass that back to the respawn client RPC on the client, and all the connected, all the clones that are connected to the other instances of the game. This is where we actually do the magic of respawning. We need to disable a few things in order for this to happen. So let's first up get the character controller. So character controller CC. We're just gonna get this as, and we know this is a component on the game object. So I'll just say CC equals get component. Get component and character controller, and that will just get the character controller component. So we want to be able to just switch it off, move the player, and then switch it back on again. So we'll do this in the simplest possible way, and then we'll build some functionality in. So we'll just say cc.enabled equals false, and then we'll set the new position, transform.position is equal to the spawn position, so that's the one we get from the server, and then we re-enable this this character controller so that we should move. So let's open up this player prefab and put that script on. So find it under scripts, and it's called player spawner. Just to get on the player, just check it's on. So the player spawner just folded all these away. So the player spawner script is now on, and we'll just give this a quick test, make sure it works. So works no problem, as you can see. So you've got this sort of instantaneous spawn. So I'm just working on this player on this right hand side, and press Y, and that player just moves off to a different position. So make sure we can see each other. So you just do it like that. So again, I'm still working on this player on the right, and I press Y and it just runs off somewhere else. So we've got the respawn system kind of working, and we're going to just improve upon that just a little bit in the next little section. So it'd be much cooler if we could do this with like a 3-second delay or something like that, so that we actually we don't respawn instantaneously in another position. So we'll just do that. In order for that to happen, what we need to do is we need to not be able to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the renderers, and I'm going to say make a renderer list, and we'll call this renderers. And just at the start here, we're going to get all these renderers. So we're going to say renderers equals, and we're going to use get components in children. So get component, not get component, but get components in children. And that will get all of the renderers in this entire game object and all the children. Okay, so we can switch those on and off. We're going to have to, if I look back here, we're going to have to also disable some of the scripts that we have on the player. So if I just go to this player, pretty much everything here we should be able to disable, obviously except the player spawner, and then we can re-enable them when we're finished spawning. So this is where we just need to use some smart programming. What we can do is we can actually create a public list. So we can get a public list of behaviors, they're called. So a public behavior list, and we'll call this scripts. Okay, and I know it's a kind of a terrible name, but what we can do is just fill this. If I show you right now, I'll fill this with a list of scripts. So because it's a public list, we can add as many of them as we want. So I want to add the first person controller, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So we'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just drag the first person controller on, the player health script on, the player shooting script, because we don't want to be able to shoot, and the network transforms. Well, we can switch that off and switch it back on again when we've moved it. So that allows us to just be able to go through all of them. We need to be a bit smart about doing this, because we're going to have to switch them back on again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a function called set player state, and pass in a bool value that'll be either a true or a false based on the state that we want, and I'll just call this state. Then we're just going to cycle through every one of those scripts. So we're just going to use the for each. So for each, let's call it script in script. We'll say script.enabled equals false, state, so depending on what we're doing. So we'll enable all the scripts, and while we're at it, we can say for all the renderers in the renderers list, so all for every renderer, in renderers, we'll say renderer.enabled equals false. I'll just switch off all the, sorry, did it again, equals state, and it'll just switch on or off all of those renderers as well as all of those scripts. So the this is going to be done on the this coroutine will be done on the client. So let's just write this coroutine before we, in order to use this wonderful script that we've just written. So obviously it's a coroutine, it's going to be an I enumerator, and we're going to call it respawn coroutine, and then pass in absolutely nothing to that. We don't need to pass in anything to the respawn coroutine. So what we're going to do is basically what we've done with this respawn client RPC. I'm going to Control X that out and Control V it in here. So we do want to disable the character controller, and then we want to use our set player state false, so that does all the rest of the disabling of the scripts and the renderers. Then we set the new position. So yeah, this I enumerator should take this vector3 spawn pause, just because it needs to know where you're actually going to respawn it. That kind of makes sense in the end. It's still got a red line because we still haven't done the, because it's a coroutine, it needs to return. So we'll just get this finished. So we want to disable the character controller, set the player, set the new position, and then re-enable back everything again. So we'll say let's set player state back to true again, and we should, just before we move the player, what we should do is do this little delay. So we'll say yield return new, and then wait for seconds. We'll just hard code a value of 3 seconds in right now. Well, let's have a little think about this and then see if it, oh yeah, before we do, let's make sure that we're calling this. So this is going to be run on the client, and we'll just start coroutine, respawn coroutine, and pass to it the spawn position. All right. Okay, let's have a little test, see if that works. All right, so I've got a couple of instances running, a host and a client. You'll see when I'm on this one on the right hand side here, press Y, disappears from the screen and heads off to somewhere else. The host, if I work on the host, the same thing. So I've got the host, he's looking at this other character, so he'll just disappear from this guy's screen because he's went to a new spot. I'm not sure whether I prefer the delay to be before or after the movement, because I kind of feel like I kind of want to wait before I move everybody. So I might just move this before I move this after I've done the delay. So the wait 3 seconds, the camera will still be looking in the position that they were killed at, and then it will randomly move to the next one. So let's just, in the next little section, let's just hook this up so that we can call it from the player health when they go down. So hooking this up just requires a little bit of thought to work out how to get this into the player health. So first up, I've added this serialized field attribute to the player health, as one of my commenters on one of my YouTube videos was saying. It's probably simpler to do it that way, so we can get rid of the public variable because we can see the serialized field value inside of there. So yeah, just going back to how we're going to hook this up. The reason why it's awkward is because the player shooting, when we actually do the damage, we're doing it in a server RPC, so we're actually doing it on the server. So if you tried to run this respawn method from a client, you'd get an error. It wouldn't really it wouldn't really work because it's not working from the local player and it's got to do with permissions. You could bypass the whole process and not do the respawn completely and just go straight to the client RPC. But I actually do want the server to get the respawn position, and so I do want to be able to kind of run it as a client, which is just to keep it simple. We'll just do it inside this update, and there's a couple of little things that we need to do. So first up, we'll get this this player health needs to have access to the player spawner. So we'll just create the player spawner handle here. So we'll just call it player spawner, and then inside of start, we'll get the player spawner from the component. So we'll get component player spawner. That gives us access to the player spawner. So the take damage, as I said, this runs on the server, and this does actually take the value off of the health. But what we can do is inside of the update, what we can do is we can check to see what this value is, what our actual local value is. So we can just say if the health dot value is less than or equal to 0, and if you're the local player. So if is local player. So if this is the local player, then we can run that player spawner respawn event, and everything should work. So with one minor change. So if our health has gone down, so because we're the local player, we have access to change. We will need to get access to change this value. So if you try running this right now, what you'll find is that it says that this network variable that we have an error saying that we don't have access to write to this, because by default these network variables can be changed by the server, which is kind of why we did this this damage take damage on the server, because we were changing on the server. But we can change this. So to try and set this health dot value back, what we can do is we can use the different variant of this network variable, and you can see this inside of the documentation for MLAPI on Unity. But what we need to do is we need to make a new network variable settings, and we need to set some of those settings already. So I'm going to set the write permissions. So I'm going to say write permissions equals network variable permission dot owner only. So this means that not only the server can set it, but also the owner. So this player that owns this health variable can also set it. So this is why this line will work when it wouldn't have worked before. So it does look like a bit of a mouthful, but it just is. Just get used to this, and you just have to look up in the documentation a few times. The second parameter is how you set this. You can actually set this value as you initialize it as well, so you don't have to do that at network start or whatever. So it looks like a bit of a mouthful, but it's the only way that we can really do this. So we can set this value back to 100. The other option is that we check in here and we set the value back to 100, but then we ask the client to reset. But again, that could be fraught with danger. So now that we've set this value back in a long-winded manner, let's just run the player spawner respawn method, and everything should work as always. So let's just have a good think about this, and then we'll give it a quick test. So we've got the host, we've got the client, and we're able to shoot. Now I changed the damage up in the gun as well. So the damage value is like 200 now. So we're always one hit is all it takes to kill the player, and that way you can just test that a little bit quicker. So if you needed to know how to do that, so it's in the player shooting here where we run the take damage method. I just set this value to 200. The last little thing I wanted to do was it looks a bit weird when the player just randomly disappears. I I wanted to maybe make a particle system so that we instantiate the particle system rather than just suddenly disappear. So I'm going to make I've actually made one. I'll just show you how to hook it up. So I've got a public particle system, and we're going to call it death particles will be fine. And we need to spawn this in. Now, again, this is where you get your head around this whole client and server. We need it to be spawned in for every clone, so that the other people who have a clone on their screen who gets killed are able to see this. So you obviously need to do it sort of inside this client RPC, and the best place to do it rather than do it here is probably at the start in the respawn coroutine. So we'll do it the very first thing in this respawn coroutine. So we'll just chuck it in here. So it's just instantiating the particles. It's just instantiate, and then we called it death particles, and we're just going to set it in the transform.position and transform.rotation of this game object. So hopefully that's all good to go. Let's just quickly test it and see what it looks like. So I'll do this regularly, but just make sure that you've actually put that particle system on in the correct place. So I made this really simple particle system, and I'm just going to drag it into this death particle slot that I put on the player spawner, and hopefully then we should be able to just test this so that we see what it looks like. But so I've got a host on one side, client on the other, and this time when I hit the player, you get this sort of like random particle system gets flies off and hits them. So yeah, I hope that's been fairly informative for you guys. It's a really simple sort of first-person player with a laser kind of gun. There's so much more to it, but hopefully I've covered some of the main concepts of MLAPI over this tutorial. I'm probably going to do another one in the future, and probably going to be looking at using the photon transport layer and trying to keep things simple, maybe add in some lobbies and stuff like that. But I hope you enjoyed the series, and please like and subscribe, and put in the comments if you want any more of these, and hopefully I'll get to it. And yeah, happy coding.